Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about Food Network star Anne Burrell's unexpected death. We also have a couple of true crime stories involving men who kill their partners, a new Netflix documentary that explores bizarre and revolting events in recent history, and hundreds of dead infants that may be inside of a septic tank. All that and more on today's episode. Always unusual stuff we got going on here on our show.
Always.
All right. So yeah, this was a little bit shocking to hear about Anne Burrell's death.
Yeah, I mean, she's only 55 years old. I definitely think it rocked the chef community. I mean, I've been seeing every celebrity chef, Bobby Flay, Rachel Ray, everyone's posting about her passing. So basically, Tuesday morning, right before 8 o'clock, her husband found her unresponsive on the shower floor, called 911, and she was pronounced dead. Right now, there's not a clear-cut answer as to what happened, but there's been speculation there was lots of pills around her. That's unclear if that contributed to the death or what happened. But your pet peeve is that they've reported it as cardiac arrest. So,
well, I don't know. I don't think the news really puts across what they hear from the fire department. That's my personal opinion, because it seems like from what I've been reading that they responded, so the FDNY responded to a cardiac arrest, which means that someone's heart stopped.
okay.
So that's fine, but that's not how she died, because everyone dies when their heart stops. You know, that's how everyone dies. So it does kind of like, I don't even know why they say it out loud. It's so irritating, but yeah, so they'll do an autopsy on her to figure out what happened, because we don't know, because a lot of, especially people that are famous or high profile, they don't tell all about their medical history. So she could have been having some medical issues. She could have been having psychological issues. I honestly think that she does, because of, did you see, you didn't remember Duff from Charm City Cakes? Did you read his?
I didn't read his.
All right, because let me read it to you, because I have it here. I read it and I was like, okay, that's weird. It just was like a little bit like of a red flag to me. Maybe that's just my opinion, but he said it was really long. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it said they became friends in 2006, and it said, quote, she was going through some stuff, and I heard she was taking a trip from New York to Baltimore, and I made her a cake that said, don't let that be blank win. She never did. And I'm assuming the blank is bitch. It's a curse of some sort. I mean, what else would it be?
Well,
but
are
but
you trying
but
to say that was recently? Because I think he's saying that was when they met.
No, I know, but he said stuff like, oh, she was going through some stuff, and then later on he said that he lost touch with her for whatever reason, and they saw each other again, and she seemed like she was in a better place, or like something like that. So it seems like she was having, at some point, went through a really rough patch of her life. And he was kind of saying that she seemed like she got out of it. So at some point she was dealing with something. And of course, like, obviously all of the pills at the scene that were unknown. Again, they were saying that there were pills at, remember Gene Hackman's, when Gene Hackman's wife died.
They grasp onto any little thing they can to try to be like, oh, look at what happened here.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we do know is that, at least from what's being reported anyway, that the husband apparently last saw her alive at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then went into the bathroom at 6 or 7 hours later and found her next to the shower that was, it seemed like it was on, maybe? Or she was getting ready to take a shower, or she had just gotten out of the shower.
Yeah, like,
so we know that, and so I guess he called 911, and they said, okay, give her CPR, and then he told them that she was cold. So it said that they were not sure if he did the CPR or not, because, and in my opinion, like, if the FDNY came and pronounced her dead at the scene, it was pretty clear that she had been dead for a while. They didn't attempt to revive her or bring her to the hospital. So
But I wonder if this is going to end up becoming like a Bob Saget thing where she fell down,
It
hit
could
her
be
head or something.
Yeah, it could be like she could have fell and hit her head and then was like going to get Tylenol and she had a brain bleed and collapsed, right? And then all the pills spilled. It could be anything at this point. So as of right now, when we're recording, we don't know what happened yet. She went to the medical examiner's office, and so what they're going to do is they're going to do the autopsy. Now, if they found all of those pills and stuff, the investigators will collect all of that evidence and write it down and see if it was a prescription she was on. And sometimes one of the interesting things they do is like they look at the date on the prescription bottle and they want to see if all of the pills in the bottle match the date that it was refilled to see how many were taken. So they could do that. And then they're going to do, obviously they're going to do toxicology on her. They would do it anyway, just because she just unexpectedly died and they don't know how. So she's going to get toxicology done. But when they do the actual autopsy, that was already done as of right now. They see stuff sometimes. So they could have saw that she had a heart attack or suspected a heart attack, or she had a stroke or something that caused her to collapse and drop dead. Because if you have, let's say, for example, she had like a cold or an infection or COVID, whatever, you don't just like drop dead. Only certain things cause you to drop dead. So they would see that at autopsy right away, and they would put that information out and say, okay, it looks like she had a ruptured aortic aneurysm, but we're still waiting for toxicology to complete it. So they haven't said anything yet. And I think when did she die? On Tuesday?
On Tuesday morning.
So that was already a couple days ago. So I'm not sure if they don't have to release it, the information. But we haven't heard anything as of right now. So yeah, we're just gonna wait, and then we'll just do a follow up when we hear more information, because the toxicology could be a couple weeks before you get that back, and they might not want to close it up and say what it is until then.
I think people are just really shocked because she had been out the night before and had done improv and was seemingly in really good spirits. But I mean, if she were struggling with depression, like, that's not how that works. You can go from being happy to not very quickly. So you don't know what happened.
Yeah. And when you really want to talk to her husband, because, you have a way different relationship with your friends and what your friends see of you than a person that lives in your house with you that really knows if you're going through stuff. And like you said, this happens. I'm sure anyone listening to us right now could hear that they heard someone that they knew kill themselves and they're kind of surprised by it. Other times you're like, okay, I'm not surprised, but people hide their stuff inside, so, but she's, you were saying, I said, Maria, she could have had a heart attack and dropped dead. It happens to people all the time. And Maria's like, she's too young. And I'm like, no, she's definitely not too young. Like that happens to people all the time.
I know it happens to people. I just feel like if you heard like, oh, a 75-year-old just had a heart attack and died, you'd be like, well, that sucks. But like, they're older, so I understand that. But a 55-year-old is considered a young person.
It is.
So.
It's terrible to think about. But she 100% could have had a medical event like that, So I guess we just have to wait and see. There's not much more we could say about it at this point.
All right, so this guy and his wife were reported missing last week in North Carolina, but days later, he was found in South Carolina just chilling on a couch sitting next to containers filled with his wife's remains.
The weirdest part of this story is that they said that there was an unusual smell, and there were plastic containers that were taped shut around the apartment, and it had said it had body parts in it, and it appeared that the body parts were cut up.
Well,
and
how
I'm
else did they get in
how
there?
else did they get in there? Exactly. So, yeah, it's really weird. And I think this story is even weirder because of the next story. Cause I kept going back and forth and I'm like, is this the same story? And I'm like, wait a second. No, this is in two completely different countries. So this one's in America. So I just wanted to say this though, that when a situation like that happens, this is really gross, but they would send all of those plastic containers with the body parts in it to the medical examiner's office. And at the medical examiner's office, they're going to, you have the autopsy table, and they're basically, this is kind of disturbing, but they basically put the person back together like the most morbid puzzle ever. So they find a jaw and they know where that goes, and they find a finger and they know where that goes, and they just want to count all the fingers and count all the toes and try to find the ribs and try to find some of the arms, the legs, the bones, and try to account for everything and reconstruct the person on the autopsy table. And then they're going to look at it and say what parts are missing, and then they'll look at it and say, okay, maybe she died this way, maybe she died that way. Now the problem is that she's decomposing and smelling, so that just makes it all the bit more difficult. And I don't know what the size of these plastic containers are. Are they like the Tupperware bins you put your Christmas decorations in, or are they the ones you would microwave your food in? Like, I don't know.
That's what I was picturing, like those little containers with the lids that you put food in to bring to work.
So I mean,
lunch.
and in that case, that would just be really, really difficult to figure out exactly what happened. We always talk about how you could tell the difference between somebody that was cut up before they died versus after. So you're going to see like all of that kind of stuff. You would look at the edges to see if it looked like there was evidence of bleeding and the person was alive when the injuries were made. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't.
Yeah, but this next story is in India. So this guy noticed this horrible smell coming from his neighbor's apartment, and when he asked him about it, he was acting really weird. So of course we all know where this is going. But he calls police, they get to the apartment, and it's just a true house of horrors. Apparently this man killed his 32-year-old girlfriend, then cut her up, cooked her up, and then fed her to his dog.
Yeah. They found multiple buckets and pots of human flesh, chopped and minced. Interesting word. They found lots of tools around the apartment, including knives and other sharp tools, including an electric saw. And they're going to bring all that stuff back and examine it. The investigators try to figure out what the murder weapon is. Again, in this case, it's going to be even more difficult because the person was not only dismembered, but was also... Like, when I think about mincing garlic, that's like putting it in the garlic press and like really, it's
like
really chopped up.
grinder.
Yes, like meat grinder level. So think about examining, also decomposed because it smells. So think about examining those remains and trying to figure out what happened to this person. Not to mention the fact that we know pieces are going to be missing because the dog ate it.
Well, first he said that she accidentally poisoned herself and he didn't want to be charged with that, so he just took matters into his own hands. Like, okay. Then he finally admitted that they got in an argument and he stabbed her to death. I think he did admit to cutting her up with an electric saw. So they did find the saw covered in blood in the house. And then they also said there was just a pair of feet just sitting on a platform in the apartment as well.
Like just the feet. I could visually picture that, just a pair of feet sitting there. Like, how did people are just like so screwed up in the head, I swear.
This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
All right, so this week we are finishing up our part 2 of the Byford Dolphin situation, which is really crazy. I hope you guys got to read part 1 so far, but this is a really extreme case of decompression sickness, and it's kind of the orig of the Titanic Ocean Gate death. I guess you would say it's kind of in a similar way that they died. We have, I don't know, we don't tell you guys this enough, but we have so many stories for Mother Knows Death every week that we cut them. This week we had so many. I cut 20 stories of the ones that we were covering in our episode. 20. Over 20 maybe. So you want to check that post out in the Gross Room to see other interesting stories on the level of the ones that we talk about on this show. And also there'll be some discussion with the other members of the Gross Room about these stories, because there's just so much good stuff to cover. We just don't have time to do all of it. We have a post with maggots in the genitals. That's a really good one coming up this week. And an attempted murder investigation. So check that out.
Yeah, head over to thegrossroom.com now.
All right, so this story I picked because of this new Netflix documentary, and it has to do, well, one of the stories in the documentary has to do with a tragedy, I would say, that happened on a cruise. And since we're getting ready to go on a cruise soon, I was like, okay, we got to talk about this. I don't even know why I do this to myself, because now it's like another fear I have of going on this stupid freaking cruise.
Yeah, I really am mad at you for picking this story today because I saw it was coming up on Netflix. It's dropping today, this documentary, and I really absolutely was trying to avoid this at all costs because I don't want to read it before going on the ship. And now I've been forced to read the story against my will. Thanks.
New fear. Well, I'd rather you be worrying about this instead of the boat sinking or something. But I was going to suggest we should watch Titanic before we go.
You know what also wasn't on my mind until one of my husband's cousins brought it up was pirates. Like, totally.
Has a pirate ever, like, tried to hurt anybody on a cruise ship before?
I don't know, but something about our family is none of us can go anywhere without some situation happening. And because all of us are going to be on the boat, I feel like some catastrophic
Oh, let's see. It's either going to be mom's going to poop her pants.
That's going to happen.
Well, I hope that it's something like small and it's not. I mean, not that that's small. That would be quite embarrassing, but that's nothing compared to this story we're going to talk about right now. I never even heard of this one.
Are both going to totally disappear in the Bermuda Triangle? Or
who's going to take over Mother Knows Death if our boat disappears?
I think it's just gonna live forever with the horror of...
We're probably gonna have to have Laura take over because we talk about her enough on this show. Mom will be with us, so that's it. That's the end of that.
Everybody that could take it up. Well, Laura would actually be a really good choice to come in and take it over because she's just as outrageous as us, and she has really great storytelling ability.
She is definitely way more outrageous than us.
We should actually have her on soon to like guest host with us.
I've been thinking about that. I'm like, she's gonna become a fan fave.
Laura Lee, we're looking at you. All right, so either the boat's gonna disappear in the Bermuda Triangle, or it's going to get attacked by pirates, or something like this is going to happen, where a fire breaks out on day 3, turning off all the power, making the toilets not work, flooding all of the cabins with poop and sewage, and then forcing people to poop in bags.
This is really a nightmare.
Yes.
It's unbelievable, and I hate to bring this up for any of you who are also going on a cruise this summer. Like, I didn't even think about this. But yeah, people, I mean, it's not even that. It's just kind of like they were stuck in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico with no power. So when it got dark for 4 days. So, and I've been thinking about that. Like, what happens if you're on the cruise longer than you're supposed to be on it? Like, if you don't have your medicine and you don't have like all that stuff, like.
You didn't see on the app, it tells you to bring extra medicine to account for itinerary
that
changes.
Sucks. I don't use it. Does it really?
Yeah, when you're reading
so that's how they word it, to count for itinerary changes?
Yes.
Not God.
The power's going to go out. We're going to be stranded in the middle of the Gulf for 4 days, and then we're going to have to get towed to Alabama.
So what happened was the electricity goes out, and they can't flush the toilets anymore. And they said that the toilets are filled to the brim with shit and like overflowing in people's rooms to the point where people took their mattresses and like put them out on the deck to get fresh air because there was no air conditioning and everywhere smelled like poop so bad. They were running out of food and so they had to hand it out sparingly because they wanted to make sure that they had enough for everyone. This really is like on Titanic level of people thought they were going to die. I mean, really, like, you don't know if anybody's coming to get you and shit. Like, it's so scary.
They couldn't have gotten towed in sooner than 4 days. I'm seriously asking this because they said communication was sparse with land, but they're not monitoring them like they are airplanes. Like, they just didn't realize an entire cruise ship was not on course for days.
I don't know why it took so long.
I mean, this was what, in 2013?
But maybe they had to get a special boat that was able to tow it. That might not just be, like, readily available. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big-ass boat. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that might just not be sitting in a dock somewhere. They had to maybe wait for it to come. I don't know how any of that stuff works. What year was it?
2013, I believe. I'd 100% think I was dying. If I was
you
stranded.
already think you're dying and we haven't even gotten on it yet.
Yeah, I already told you I can't look over the edge when we're on open waters.
Oh
I can't handle it. So yeah, and like
this is the best thing she says to me yesterday. She's like, this is in her mind. She says, a cruise is claustrophobic, she says to me. And she goes, I can't look over the edge because it's claustrophobic. And I'm like, there's no point in the world that you could be further away from any structure ever besides the middle of the ocean, especially Bermuda. It's in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the ocean.
I don't know the proper
any
term
land
for
you
it.
go on, you could go in the middle of the mountains, wherever you go. You're always going to be closer to like a mountain or a structure.
I'm not using the proper word. It's like the opposite of claustrophobic. It's like this fear of like openness. I always think about that with the Titan submersible and going to space. It's like you're just up there and there's like you can't see anything else. Like
Oh my
it's so
God.
scary. Anyway, yeah. So I was thinking if this was today with the, like the death clock we're having and the oxygen countdown, we would have had a food and water countdown if we knew this cruise was missing. I didn't know this happened back then, but I also wasn't watching the news religiously like I am now. But yeah, it was. So this was only
When
supposed to
life
be
was just so much better.
This was only supposed to be a 5-day trip. And then on day 3, this fire breaks out. And then they were left just drifting in the Gulf for 4 days. Oh my God, I would have freaked out.
I'm trying to think of what this lady said. So I saw that there was a lawsuit for not really many people got it on it though. What
That's idiotic. We are like
31
anti-lawsuit for most things, but this is 100%
But
worth it.
she was like, I wasn't physically injured. I was mentally injured. It's true. I can't.
Is it?
I mean, you would never want to. Obviously, you would never. This would give you a lifelong fear of just boats in general, which. I mean, you don't have to go on cruises for sure, but like maybe you want to take a ferry somewhere or whatever, like you would have a legitimate fear of just I would think it would span over to planes and everything else that takes you away from where you're supposed to be and you could get trapped somewhere or whatever. I don't know.
What about the morgue refrigerator? Because it said there's no refrigeration,
So-
right? So what if somebody had died?
So they had backup generators apparently, and this is another thing I wanted to bring up. This was a Carnival cruise, by the way, which we're not going on, luckily.
Thank
But
God.
not that matters because they're probably all the same. But anyway, the Carnival cruise, when they did the investigation, they found out that they had 6 generators on the boat, but like they knew that only 4 of them were working. It's like a hindsight of Titanic. Oh, we knew there wasn't enough lifeboats for people. It was like
So why go?
So they went, there was a bunch of different safety rules that were broken. Apparently there was a fire before in the same place and like, just like all the stuff. So they knew that it was going to happen. The worst, we have to like look into this more because we just did a quick like little research on it. But I'm wondering like what they offered people because wasn't it recently that maybe it was like the Air Alaska one where the door flew off or something that they offered you like a $1,500 credit or something, like it was something so insulting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the one
not
that turned
enough.
upside down on the runway. It was like one of those.
It was, I believe it was the one where the door flew off, but absolutely not enough.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sorry, the door flies off when you're in the middle of the sky. Like in that, and it's
then
because they knew
you're
there
in
was an issue.
Then you're in a situation where really terrible things could start happening when there's human shit that's not going into a sewage system.
That's what I was just going to ask you. I know that woman says she wasn't physically injured, but is this not hazardous to be breathing this stuff in?
It's not hazardous to breathe it in, but having fecal material anywhere near people that can either touch it. This one lady said that she was like walking through human shit and like sliding through it. But then it's like on your foot and then you go and scratch your foot and then all of a sudden it's under your fingernail and then you go to eat a sandwich and then all of a sudden it's your mouth. Like this is why like some parts of India that don't have plumbing, the infections run rampant across people because they don't have proper sewage. It's really, really bad. I mean, it was only 4 days, so like the real problems didn't start yet, but it's just disturbing. And you don't ever want to smell someone else's shit. It's just terrible.
Are you also now contemplating packing rain boots just in case?
Yes, and Imodium AD.
Oh my God. I'm
like people were looking, like just the way they describe it. I want to watch this, actually. Maybe we should watch it on the trip. People were describing, we already talk about it. We already know it. Like, why not? people were describing that like they were looking for toilets that weren't filled to the brim to take a shit in. Like, think about that.
You're also joking about saving this documentary for when we're on the boat, but I'm sitting here like, this lady's movie itinerary for family movie night's going to be Poseidon, Titanic, the Titan Submersible, the Poop Cruise documentary.
Yes.
Like, why not just torture yourself psychologically while you're on the boat? You're not in charge of family activities. I'm sorry. We have to draw the line here. All right. This story is absolutely crazy. So in Ireland, there's this historian named Catherine Corliss. So years ago, she had been going through records for a home for unwed mothers. And in her research, she found that nearly 800 infants had been recorded as dying between 1925 and 1961 at this place, but only 2 had official burial records. So of course the question is, where are the other bodies?
So I guess the concern was they're not so much thinking that it was shady for the most part. They said the most frequent cause of death was respiratory infections, gastroenteritis, prematurity, whooping cough, tuberculosis, and things like that. So they weren't really saying it was shady, like how they all died, because again, Maria said it was between 1925 and 1961. I mean, to an extent, because I think the women there were not treated super great. So there's a possibility that, not that they were murdered, but maybe that some of the babies died from like malnutrition and stuff like that.
Well, you have to think it was run by a church, and it was for women that were pregnant and not married during a time where that was highly unacceptable in society. So these women went there and were treated
Churches
like
are
absolute shit.
No, they never treat people like shit. Come on.
You are full of shit for saying that.
Okay, but regardless, like they're not really investigating that. They're just kind of like, where are all these babies? So I just don't really understand how they decided that they were possibly in this old septic tank.
Well, I don't think they necessarily knew they were in the septic tank. I believe the historian had a theory that they were buried in unmarked graves on the property. And then, so she published this finding in 2014, and she said for years, everybody treated her like she was crazy, tried to ostracize her from society, of course, because the church can do no wrong. Are we right? So then in 2017, after much public scrutiny, they finally did a test excavation and found that, in fact, her theories were true. So as of this week, now they're beginning the excavation. I don't know why it took almost 10 years to start it, but they believe it's going to take about 2 years. But so I think in general, they think about 796 infant remains are in this septic tank on the property.
Yeah. And that was a really long time ago. So it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. Now, the conditions underground could be potentially preserving the bodies a little bit more. It just depends if they were embalmed, like how they were placed in there or whatever. So it's going to be interesting what they come across, honestly.
Is that not like a crazy amount of deaths? So I'm going to do the math right now.
But if they're saying it's diphtheria and they were all living in close quarters, and tuberculosis especially, during that time, I don't think it's...
That's 22 deaths a year of just the children.
But
How
they
many
were
people were living there?
But if they were living in close quarters in TB, like, it's just going to go around.
So,
and diphtheria, all of these, pertussis, all of this stuff, like there's a lot of stuff here that were that were very contagious diseases that people got back in the day like that. So
yeah, they said it was ranging from infants to 3-year-olds. So to a point,
I mean, how many people lived there?
I don't know. That's what
the
I'm
thing.
asking.
You're saying it's 22 a year, but it. I mean, if there was only 30 women there, that's like, it's a lot. But if it was 100, I don't know. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I just think it's kind of a lot. I understand that they could prove, or maybe they theorize that most of it was due to natural diseases. I just think it's a crazy high number, and especially that there wasn't some system in place that they had to have official burial records. But to a point you brought up earlier, so when they excavate all these remains, how are they going to identify what's what from the same body?
Well,
of so many.
Well, I guess they're going to do, I guess they have people's names and they're going to do DNA tests on them. And
That's nuts.
it is nuts.
All right. Let's move on to questions of the day every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account. You guys could head over to our story and ask whatever you want. First, when a full-term baby dies before birth, does the baby go into full rigor mortis? Does it make delivery harder?
All right. I have to tell you guys that I have just spent 2 hours today trying to figure this out for you because it's a really good question. And I want to know the answer as well. So not only with my own personal experience, but I also contacted my friend Jamie, who is a labor and delivery nurse. And I also contacted my friend Christy, who does autopsies specifically on fetuses and infants. She works at a pediatric hospital. So with all of this knowledge together, I'm going to tell you what we've come up with. So, and the reason that I ask is because I would only get an infant that died in utero or a fetus. The only time that I've ever seen them a stillbirth would be if they were usually macerated, which means that when a fetus dies in the wound, they're inside of amniotic fluid. So they have a very specific appearance when they start to decompose because when they die, they're in water. And their skin isn't developed all the way as it would be like an adult or even a child. So there's all these different factors to take into consideration. But usually when there's a stillbirth, the mother will notice that there's a decrease of fetal activity. And then that's why they tell you, especially the further along you get, you should be feeling the baby move every so often. And if you don't, you should go get that checked out. And by that time, if it is in fact the baby has died in utero, when you get to the doctor, it's already been hours since the baby has been dead inside of this fluid. And then by the time they get you in and schedule the procedure and have you either give birth or to take it out, however they decide to do that, when we get the fetus at that point, it's macerated. So it means that it's been dead and decomposing in this amniotic fluid for quite some time, which means they've already been dead way longer than there would ever be signs of rigor present anyway. So when I talked to my friend Jamie, and the reason I wanted to talk to her is because she's experiencing it like straight out of the vagina, right? She's like with the patients that are dealing with this. And she said that in her whole career, and she's a very well experienced nurse, that she hasn't seen that or known of that to be a problem. And the same thing with CRISPR. She said that she has never seen it in a fetus and has never seen rigor mortis in a fetus. I have never seen it in a fetus in surgical pathology as well. But she said she has seen it in an infant before that lived and was out of the womb for a while. So that's something to take into consideration. So then I found this textbook from 1904, which is old as hell, but it's really interesting because it's describing the paper is titled Rigor Mortis in Stillborn Children. So this is exactly what we're talking about here. And this physician that has experience delivering, a midwife that has delivered a lot of babies, said that they have experienced it in a fetus, rarely, but have, to the point where it could cause some problems with delivery. But this doctor has also said that they never have seen it in a fetus younger than 7 to 8 months old. And which is something to consider, because when you consider stillborn, it's usually over 20 weeks of pregnancy. So 7 to 8 months would be like 28 weeks plus to 28 to like 32 weeks, right? So there's that time period where you probably shouldn't see it at all. So with all that information, I would say that it is possible that it happens, but usually by the time a mother realizes that she's having a stillborn, it's already past the point of that, and they're not going to have it like an adult would. So it's usually not experienced, but it could be. One of the things cited in that book was that it was a mom that just last had fetal movements 5 hours prior. So sometimes it just depends when it's caught. But in that particular situation, the doctor did see that there was some difficulty delivering because it was not dead that long. Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right, 2. When an autopsy is requested by authorities if foul play is suspected, but the family is against it, what happens?
This is a good question, too, actually. So, if somebody dies, and this happens often because people have religious requests, and people just don't want their family member to get an autopsy. Like, I personally wouldn't, unless it had to actually be done. So they will try to respect as much as possible, but especially if it's a homicide, forget it. Like, if you get called and one of your family members was in a car accident and it was pretty clear what happened, and you beg them and say, please, 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 and they say, okay, well, maybe we could just check their head because it looks like they had a head injury. They might do like a limitation on the autopsy. They do as much as possible, and they try as much as possible to respect the family. But at the same time, they have to do it because it's a medical legal investigation. So the medical examiner is is the law, is the police. Like, they have jurisdiction over the body, so they could figure out what happened. Because especially in homicide cases, and we see this with the Karen Reed, right? Like, the autopsy is super important, and the information that comes from the autopsy is sometimes what is the information that's needed to convict the person. So if they don't have that information, then a person that killed a person could go free because of that. So they will try their hardest, but in some cases it doesn't matter how much you beg and cry. Like, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, so basically the medical examiner could overrule anything.
Yeah.
If they determine they are going to do it.
Yeah. But if, like, in a hospital autopsy, for example, we have to get permission from the next of kin to do it. And if you don't want us to do it, like, we're not legally, like, not allowed to touch the body. So it's just like a totally different thing.
Okay, last. Have you ever done an appearance in a documentary, or have you ever been on TV? You were on that episode of Oddities.
I was on 2 episodes of Oddities. I don't even know what the episodes are.
And it was like in 2013. Like, I don't even know if you could find them still. It was such a long time ago.
I know. Wait, 2013?
Yeah, it was before you had Lillian.
No, it had to be before that.
I think
before I
aired.
even got pregnant with Lillian.
No, I know. I think you filmed it in 2012,
yeah.
but it aired in 2013.
Or 2011 even, maybe. Like, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a while.
Like, I feel like my hair was still dyed black. It was such a long time ago.
But were you ever on anything else?
I don't think so. I was trying to think, and I'm like, I don't think so. Like, I've done a bunch of articles and stuff, but I don't think I've ever done, I mean, like the Vice documentary.
Yeah, there was a Vice thing, and that was a long time ago, too. That was like, what, 2014?
Yeah.
You were on Oddities before you even had Instagram.
Yeah.
That was nuts. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing like if we got interviewed for like a documentary type, as like a talking head for a couple minutes or something.
Yeah. It's funny because I was thinking, like, all the times that we've had cameras in the house, and it's like the 400 times people tell us that they want us to have a TV show, and we, like, actually entertain that for a minute, and then
they never have an idea.
They never have an idea, and it never happened. So, but we've done so many, like, sizzles and this and that and whatever, but.
And even though I feel like I'd pass out, I really want to be on Watch What Happens Live as a bartender. But
why would you pass out?
I think I'd just get so flustered.
I get flustered because I wouldn't even know how to make any drink. I'd be like, what are you talking about?
You don't have to really make a drink. You just kind of stand in the they have 2 guests on that are usually like the Bravo celebrity or like a comedian that's super into Bravo shows to talk about whatever aired that night. And then the people at the bar are usually like podcasters, people that wrote a book, or like John Mayer's just doing it all the time now. But him and Andy Cohen are best friends. But I went to a taping a couple years ago, and it's so fast. Like, they just go right through it. And the one I went to was not live, even though it's called Watch What Happens Live. Some of them are live, but it's it's very quick pace, and that's where I feel like I'd get flustered, because the second he's like turns to you and it's your time to answer, like there's one shot and that's it.
Doing shit live is like really a whole other art.
Yeah.
When I think about like when I was a kid, like Cheers or something, it'll say like filmed in front of a live studio audience. Like, could you imagine like doing that in front of an audience, like live like that? It just all the lines and being scared you're going to screw up, and they're so good. It's like it's so talented, you know?
Yeah,
It's just different when you have eyes looking on you like that.
Yeah, totally. Exactly, because like right now, like we're both in the privacy of our own home, and it's still I get flustered and I trip up on myself a lot, and that's the power of editing. But
I know, but this right now is so much different. Even though with the podcast, like right now, I'm technically standing up in front of way more people than would ever sit in an auditorium. Like it's way more nerve-wracking to sit in front of, 1/25 of that amount of people.
Well,
it's just like scary,
It's so different, and like, when we've been guests on other podcasts, I feel totally comfortable and fine because it's basically the same setup we're doing right now. But when we were on Dr. Drew live, and when we were on even Lauren's show live, I get that like rush of adrenaline. Like, I hope I don't mess up or I don't sound like a total babbling idiot, because this is it. So it's like
we
hard.
sound like babbling idiots with a lot of practice.
Totally. Yeah, I guess we're open to doing stuff like that, but it's crazy it was that long ago that you were on those things. I was trying to think of it.
All right, so guys, just make sure you stay tuned for another episode this week of us going over the Karen Reed case, because even if you think you know everything about it, I want you to hear what I have to say about the autopsy findings, and so we'll go through that with a fine-tooth comb, and then we'll talk a little bit about our thoughts on it.
Yeah, and don't forget to buy tickets to the Atlanta meet and greet or the Crime and Wine.
Speaking of being nervous in front of live people.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, seriously. So we have the Atlanta meet and greet, and then the Crime and Wine at the Georges Writer Museum. The meet and greet is the 11th. The Crime and Wine is the 12th of July. So those tickets are available in the description of this episode in the Gross Room on social media. Please head over to Apple or Spotify and leave us a nice review, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have a story for us, please submit it to stories@motherknowsdeath.com.
See you next time. Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor, and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology, so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day, and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.